start customizing your Temp-Taker menu plan, first log in on the left-hand side, then go to the Temps Setup tab on the left. I'm first going to explain each tab and then work my way back through them to show you how to add items to each tab. The temp-taking programs is where all of your customized information comes together to form one temp-taking program. Your program contains your equipment, your checklist, and all your custom food items. The Checklist tab is where you can make your own custom checklists such as opening procedures, closing procedures, general HACCP checklist, and more. Equipment is where all of your food items are organized into groups. So equipment, you may have things like hot holding, which contains items, cold holding, which contains cold items, and so on and so forth. Food items is where you add every single item that you will have to temp while using the Temp-Taker. That includes air temperatures like your walk-in coolers or your reach-in coolers and freezers, as well as actual food temps. Your Temp Zones tab is where you specify your zone name and give it a minimum and maximum range for all of your food items. Corrective Options is where you specify what options a user will have to correct an out-of-range temp. When you are ready to start customizing your temp-taking programs, first start with the last tab, Corrective Options. You may change the options already provided by simply double-clicking, or you may add a new option by selecting Add New Row. First, type in your option name. Specify whether you want it to start a corrective session. This simply means that something like quick heat, the food item does need to be brought back to a certain temperature. That means during this time period, it will be stored in our corrective options log, so you can go back and log the temperature as back in range. Something like dispose means you're getting rid of the food item. That means you will no longer have to correct a temperature, so it does not need to start a corrective session. You then give your user a directive after selecting that option. For example, for dispose, I could say inform management and dispose of food item immediately. You will need to specify a user directive for both below zone minimum and above zone maximum. These can be the same if it's something generic like dispose. When you are done on each tab, make sure to save your changes. Now move to the next tab, Temp Zones. On this tab, you will need to create a zone for each food item and its temperature range. For example, hot hold, I can put all my food items that range between 140 and 165 inside of this specific zone. Like the other tab, to add a new zone, I simply click Add New Row, type in the zone name. I have a choice to enable FMD. That simply means false measurement detection. This is a way to catch employees that are not following protocol and that are trying to cheat the system. You will want this enabled for any food categories or zones. You may not want this enabled for things like your cooler or freezer zone. After you have named your zone, you may select your minimum and maximum ranges, and then you want to specify what corrective options will be available for each zone. For example, for hot hold, if an item is measuring below the minimum temperature, you would need to quick heat the item. You would not need to quick chill the item. Something like cooler, you may need to call maintenance, but you wouldn't have to quick cool or quick heat a cooler. To add a new corrective option from your list that you've already created, simply double click, and you can click once or drag and drop. Save changes when you're finished. Next, move to your Food Items tab. This is where you'll want to add all the food items that need to be temped, including air temperatures like your AM or PM temp checks on your walk-in and reach-in coolers. To edit a current item, you can double-click like the other tabs, or to add a new item, simply click Add New Row, type in the name of the item, and assign a temp zone for the item. Some items are held at both hot and cold temperatures. You may select multiple temp zones for any item. If you'd like to quickly add maybe 50 or 100 food items at a time, You may do so by simply opening an Excel, a notepad, or even an internet document that has your food items listed. Highlight your food items and right-click and copy them. Navigate back to your software, right-click on the gray column on the far left, and select Paste from Clipboard to quickly generate food items. It will use the last temp zone that was assigned. You can change these by simply double-clicking and selecting new temperature zones. When you're done adding all of your food items, be sure to save your changes and move on to the next tab, Equipment. Equipment is where you break all of your different food items into groups. For example, you may have something like hot lunch or cold lunch, where you put all your hot lunch items in and all your cold lunch items under another. Each equipment can only have one temp zone assigned. So, if I wanted to add a new equipment, I can simply type in the equipment name, select the temperature zone for that specific equipment. I can even set a reminder to remind me it's time to take temps for that equipment. An alarm will go off at whatever times you select. You may select as many as you want. For items, this is where I can add all of my food items that fall within a hot holding to my category Hot Breakfast. When I am finished, I can save these items, and I now have a new category with new food items in it. The next tab is Checklist. This is where you can create custom checklists such as opening or closing checklists, maybe even HACCP procedures. You can manage all your checklists right here from the checklist button. You can add a new checklist by clicking the add button, or you can remove a checklist by simply clicking on the checklist and hitting delete. For each checklist question, simply provide the short name, which is the first thing the user will see. After the user selects the short name, they will be shown the full question and then prompted to give an answer. And then you can assign it to a checklist. Finally, the last tab, Temp-Taking Programs, is where you bring all of your information into an actual program. When you log on to your Temp-Taker handheld, this option will be the first thing you see. To add a new program, select Add New Row. Choose if you want the program to load automatically or not. This simply means that when you plug in your Temp-Taker unit, if this box is checked, that program will load automatically. You may choose to have check off items enabled. That simply means that your list inside of that program, as you're taking food items, it'll eliminate the items from the list after they've been measured in a correct range. If you'd like to list to reset after you have finished, select Yes under Auto Reset after last item. To begin building your program, simply click in the box under Equipment and Checklist and select from Available Equipments or Checklist. When I'm done, I can hit Save. I can save my changes. And now I am ready to upload this information to my Temp-Taker unit.